Okay, welcome to this OMG on tour video. So we're in Mexico, right on the equator in Riviera Maya. As you can see, it's absolutely boiling, so it's about 33 degrees, so hot all year round. But also we literally just had a bit of a thunderstorm, so it's also wet all year round as well. So I'm right on the edge of what is the start of a rainforest. So there's a road just behind my helpful camera person. But this is right on the edge of the rainforest, and I just wanted to show you some of the adaptations that some of the plants have to the wet but also hot conditions in the rainforest. The first thing you might be able to notice is that as soon as you get into the rainforest, it gets very dark. So you can see lots of dead and decaying leaf litter on the ground, but the soil is very infertile. There isn't really much growing on the forest floor, only a few ferns and shrubs. So the trees, all of the trees around here, particularly this one, have very tall and thin trunks so that they can grow vertically right up to the canopy layer so they can reach sunlight. So as you can see, it's very thin. To also help them grow up to the canopy layer where they can receive that 90% of sunlight as opposed to about 5% down on the forest floor, they also have buttress roots. So these are quite subtle on this one, but you can see that the roots are kind of pyramidal as opposed to the trunk, which is very thin and straight, and that pyramidal shape gives a stable base for that vertical growth towards the canopy. You can also see growing on this tree there is another plant growing on the surface, and that's called an epiphyte. So epi means surface, so this plant is growing on the surface of another plant, and that's because of that infertile soil on the ground and the lack of sunlight. It makes much more sense for this plant. It is easier for it to get its nutrients and also its sunlight by growing on the surface of another tree, which is why they're called epiphytes. It can also gain nutrients from the tree and also gets a little bit higher for the sunlight. So this particular epiphyte is just called a creeper. Finally, there are some plants lower down on what we call the shrub layer or the forest floor. As you can see, this one has very wide and broad leaves. I'm just going to pause as the trolley goes past. Has very wide and broad leaves, and as you can see, they're a real dark green, so lots of chlorophyll in that so it can catch lots of sunlight. They also have drip tips, so it rains a lot in the little spider has made its home on this one. They have a lot of rain on the equator, up to 3,000 millimeters a year, but it's also quite hot, so any excess water is gonna stay on this leaf. So it's got a waxy leaf but also a drip tip to remove that excess water and stop it from becoming too damp and rotting. So the last thing I'm going to go show you is we're going to go and find a liana, which is another type of epiphyte, a vine. So let's go and find one of those. Okay, very quickly, one last bit. So we had to come a little bit further into the rainforest, but here we've got, I don't want to break them, we've got some vines that are hanging from the trees. So they're another example of an epiphyte. They're also known as aerial roots because that's what they essentially do, is they're like a root in the ground, except they are in the air. They absorb all the nutrients that they need from the air as opposed to the ground because of that infertile soil. And just spotting here, again, I know we've already covered this, but on the ground, on the shrub layer, the forest floor, a lovely, waxy, broad, dark green leaf with a beautiful drip tip to remove that excess water.